In Ki there is the radix of a golden glory, and thence is there a pure, primitive and sparkling, gleaming golden yellow, which is reflected into Tifereth. This is the first reflected triad completed. And the sphere of its operation is that of Shemesh, the solar light, and bestoweth life, light and brilliancy in metallic matter, and it ruleth the sphere of action and of the sun. And Yhvhlo Vadoth is a god of knowledge and wisdom, ruling over the light of the universe, and its archangel is Raphael, the prince of brightness, beauty and life. And the name of the order of angels is Melachim, that is kings or angelic kings, who are also called the order of virtues, angels and rulers. The initiation of Tifereth is the first of the greater initiations into the meaning of the self. Here the individual encounters his own higher self and sacrifices his personality, that which he has hitherto believed to be himself. And while this description may appear glib, the initiation of Tifereth is literally a losing of what one has known to be life, a sacrifice of that life for a greater reality. This is the real meaning of the passage. For whosoever shall save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. A sacrifice, in these terms, does not mean the relinquishment of something much desired, rather, it is what has been described as the translation of force from one form to another. This is a translation of force directed by the will. Once more, nothing on the tree of life is static. God grows, unlike exoteric Christianity where, at its most primitive fundamentalist level, existence is viewed as a simple dichotomy between good and evil. The Qabbalah describes a universal energy, the One, which goes through varying conditions. We, ourselves, through a natural process of evolution, become different gods in turn and sacrifice one principle to another. Tifereth is the center of the tree of life and, as such, is called the mediating intelligence. The powers of all the other Sephiroth flow into it, where they stand balanced and sanctified. The vision of Tifereth is of the universal harmony, a vision also linked to its nature as a healing center where all is brought into harmonious interworking. It is the center, also, of the planets. In the hexagram, each of the 6 points represents a planet and a planetary sephira, with the sun at the middle of the figure. Tifereth is the light of the soul, on which the life of the soul depends. In the same way, the physical manifestation of Tifereth, the sun, provides the light and life support for the earth. Throughout all serious esoteric writings, the term light repeatedly appears, and it may seem that this is a metaphor about the spiritual condition. But reference to light is not metaphorical, it is descriptive. Those with even minimal experience of the inner worlds will attest to the fact that much of the inspired literature of the East and West, interpreted by theologians as merely simple, is a strikingly accurate description of spiritual experience. Figure above. Attribution of planets to the hexagram. Planetary angles are attributed according to the tree of life. The supernals are represented by Saturn, which is related to Binah. The search for direct experience of this light is the great work of the personality and incarnation, and devotion to the great work is the virtue assigned to Tifereth. The principle involved is that when the individual man improves himself in some way, that improvement works to the benefit of the entire human race. Moreover, as it was put by the Egyptian astronomer Ptolemy in his centiloquy, a sagacious mind improves the operation of the heavens as a skillful farmer, by cultivation, improves nature. Ultimately, the great work is the work of return to the Godhead from which the universe emanated. To deal with the mysteries of Tifereth, one must first have undergone the initiations of earth, air, water and fire, Malkuth, Yesod, Had and Netzik, respectively. No matter how a religious or esoteric cultus, whether Christianity, Buddhism or Kabbalism, may describe the various component parts of the personality or the initiation of the 4 lower Sephiroth, an integration must be undergone before the descent of the light which is God the Son. This integration is a personal atonement for the fall. In Tifereth is the redemption. As the spirit in Tifereth is king over the 4 elemental aspects which are the personality, so the rulers of the actual elemental kingdoms of earth, air, water and fire are found in Tifereth. These are the Malachim, elementals who are kings over the other elements because they have gained immortality. This occurs only through the intervention of human beings. Man is, in fact, the initiator of the elementals. There is another very common biblical reference which takes on an extraordinary meaning when interpreted in Qabalistic terms. Except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Entering the divine light of Tifereth is a renewal, a conversion, or a turning around, as the Greek word is often translated. The result of the experience is to become a child in a new world. So, the child, which will, by definition, grow into manhood within the new experience, is attributed to Tifereth. Tifereth is the child who grows to adulthood and takes Malkuth, our material earth, as his bride. At the same time, Chakma and Binah themselves were produced by the will of the Eternal Father in Kether. Thus Tifereth, on the middle pillar, the pillar of equilibrium, is God the Son. Readers who encountered this idea for the first time, as it related to the court cards in an introduction to the Golden Dawn Tarot, may have found it an appealing fairy tale. The king and queen marry and give birth to a prince, who marries the princess, etc. But this is not mere fancy. It is an anthropomorphic symbolism explaining the operation of the tetragrammaton wherever it appears. Tifereth is the prince, the vow, of the formula. But Tifereth is also the realm of the sacrificed gods, Christ, Buddha, Osiris and others. So we understand that the prince must die in order that the universal cycle be renewed. There are a number of key symbols related to Tifereth, of which the first is a figure based on 6. This is the cube, a form taken twice over in the double cube altar of Malkuth. Another 6-sided figure, attributed to the Sephira, is the pyramid, which is truncated or, in essence, has its top cut off. This pyramid represents Adam Kadmon, the 6 lower Sephiroth. It is the archetypal man, above whom are the heavenly supernals, Binah, Chakma and Kether. The supernals are the completion of the pyramid. Another important Tifereth symbol is the Calvary cross, properly shown as black, surrounded by a circle, and mounted on 3 steps. This is the cross of wisdom through sacrifice. The rose cross laymen are also powerful Tifereth symbols. The 6 is definite accomplishment and carrying out of a matter. The underlying characteristic of all of the 6s is success, which results from effort. In Atziluth, world of energy, this means victory. In Brya, world of pleasure, happiness is brought about after work to that end. In Yutsira, world of quarreling and strife, success is earned by the strife itself. And in Asaya, world of business and commerce among men, this means material success. 6 of Wands, Lord of Victory, Jupiter in Leo. Angels of the Deacon. Sadal and Almaya. This is Tifereth and Atziluth, the influence of Tifereth in the world of pure spirit. The benevolence of Jupiter, in the fiery sign Leo, brings success and possibly warm relationships. It is an aspect suggesting drama to some extent and a victory which follows great effort. A perfect balance of powers is shown by the crossed wands which, in Crowley's card, are those of the 3 adepts in Golden Dawn ritual. Wade emphasizes the idea of victory after strife with his mounted figure. 6 of Cups, Lord of Pleasure, Sun in Scorpio. Angels of the Deacon. Nalakiel and Yael. This is Tifereth and Brya, the influence of Tifereth in the mental world. As Tifereth and Atziluth means victory after effort, so Tifereth in the watery world means the beginning of pleasure. Scorpio is a sign of hidden qualities, a sign of discrimination and magnetism. The scorpion may sting where the will directs. So as the sun activates the Scorpio energies, the gain or pleasure commences. There is the implication, though not the assurance, that it will build. The Golden Dawn and Crowley cards show partially filled cups, while the Weight card suggests the beginning of pleasure by flowers emerging from the cups. 6 of Swords, Lord of Earned Success, Mercury in Aquarius. Angels of the Deacon. Rihail and Yaeziel. This is Tifereth and Yutsira, the influence of Tifereth in the astral world. Saturn is the ruler of Aquarius, and here exerts its stabilizing power on the fleeting qualities of Mercury in that in. The success is the result of Saturn's work in this aspect. Thus the card is called the Lord of Earned Success. Here, again, the cutting qualities of swords are turned to positive advantage, and the Golden Dawn rose is resurrected after having been torn apart by the 5 warring swords of Jabura. In Golden Dawn symbolism, crossed swords are the positive power of air. The swords which do not touch one another are the negative power of air. And where the swords come together and touch one another, or the rose, they may be positive or negative. Crowley's card is particularly interesting in that the swords meet at the very center of a rose cross of 6 gold squares, which he explained as meaning, the rose cross is the central secret of scientific truth. Here again, the way of the cross is that of suffering, which tends to underscore the meaning of this card as success after anxiety and trouble. The great difficulty with which reward is obtained is shown by Waite's boatman, carrying souls across the river of spirit. 6 of Pentacles, Lord of Material Success, Moon in Taurus. Angels of the Deacon. Nememiah and Yael. This is Tifereth and Asaya, the material world. The changing qualities of the moon, its natural flow, its charm and subtleties, are merged with the hard work and deliberate earth qualities of Taurus. The result is sure success in business and other mundane areas. Only Crowley's card requires explanation. He has abstracted the hexagram around Tifereth with its planetary symbols, adding a central rose cross of 49, 7x7, petals. The prince seated in chariots, and thus borne forward. They represent the vow forces of the name in each suit, the mighty son of the king, and the queen, who realizes the influences of both scales of force, a prince, the son of a king and queen, yet a prince of princes, and a king of kings. An emperor, whose effect is at once rapid, though not so swift as that of a king, and enduring, though not as steadfast as that of a queen. It is therefore symbolized by a figure born in a chariot and clothed with armor. Yet is his power illusionary and less set in motion by his father and mother. The princes are very complex cards in that they are wholly activated by the king and queen. As the text suggests, they have no motive power of their own, being pulled along in their chariots. But, from the standpoint of the Enlightened Tarot, these cards are all important. First, it will be seen that the lion, eagle, man, arch-fairies here, and bull are the 4 cherubim. These are very ancient symbols of the elements, attached to many different religions. They appear among the gods of the Assyrians. They are the 4 animals in the Old Testament vision of Ezekiel. They are the 4 symbols of the Christian evangelists. They are the rulers of the 4 elements of the Qabalah. In Key there are the primordial elements, which become the united rulers of the elements in Tifereth, and which are individually expressed in Malkuth. The princes are the personified forces, kings, of those elements brought into perfect balance in Tifereth. If the cards are set out in a row, wands, cups, swords and pentacles, the golden light of spirit may be imagined as permeating the 4 and directing the cherubim to pull the chariots. These are the most refined aspects of the personality. They are the elemental kings in ourselves. As such, the princes may be taken in any direction by the divine will. The energy of the Prince of Wands may be applied with justice or with cruelty. The unconscious flow of the Prince of Cups may be subtle and artistic, or it may be very evil. The mental activities of the Prince of Swords, ideas, may be creative or destructive. The material qualities of the Prince of Pentacles may cause growth for good or evil. The princes may provide a point of entry for true understanding of the tarot deck as a tool of enlightenment. And here the utility of the princesses may also become clear, for they are the grounding of the lessons of the princes on our material plane. It will now be appreciated why the princes, in a divination, often represent the coming and going of an event or person, and the princesses often represent approval or disapproval of a matter. Prince of Wands, Prince of the Chariot of Fire, Prince and Emperor of the Salamanders. Last Deacon of Cancer, first 2 Deacons of Leo. The Prince of Wands is heir of fire, specific heir of primal fire. In the Golden Dawn and Crowley cards, his chariot is drawn by the Lion of Leo, symbolizing enormous strength which may be turned in either direction, and which has the potential for violence if angered. In the Golden Dawn card the prince holds the elemental fire wand, while Crowley's prince holds the phoenix wand associated with the fiery Saphira, Jabura. Generally, the princes, knights, in the Marseille and Waite decks are unexceptional and need not be Prince of Cups, Prince of the Chariot of the Waters, Prince and Emperor of Nymphs and Undines, last Deacon of Libra, first 2 Deacons of Scorpio. The Prince of Cups is heir of water, specific heir of primal water. Here again, the Golden Dawn version is the inspiration for that of Crowley, both emphasizing the water lotus and the serpent issuing from a cup. Wherever the serpent appears it is generally a reference to Chakma, the divine wisdom, the Yod force. Here it has the fiery, menacing qualities of Scorpio. The cup, held by the prince, is He, and encloses the Yod serpent. As vow, the prince carries out the activities of the Yod and He combined. Here is water. The chariot itself is pulled across the water by an eagle, water symbol among the 4 cherubic emblems. At another level, the suggestion is that the calm appearance of water may hold violent and fiery energies, like sulfuric acid, which appears entirely benign until it has something upon which to act. Water symbolizes the personal, group, or universal unconscious with amic energies. Prince of Swords, Prince of the Chariots of the Winds, Prince and Emperor of Sylphs and Sulfides, last Deacon of Capricorn, first 2 Deacons of Aquarius. The Prince of Swords is heir of air, specific heir of primal air. There is significant Yesod moon symbolism here in that this is a card of mind. The dual fairies of the Golden Dawn card and the 3-winged children of Crowley's suggest that, like the mind itself, the chariot may be pulled capriciously in any direction. In the right hand of the prince is the sword which invokes and creates, but in his left is the sickle which immediately destroys that which is created. In the Golden Dawn card the repeated pentagrams are a reference to the sword of Jabura. But as the prince's crest is a child's head with a pentagram on its forehead, we are told here that this prince wields the sword with childlike innocence. This is an extension of the same symbolism found in the Queen of Swords. Prince of Pentacles, Prince of the Chariot of Earth, Prince and Emperor of the Gnomes, last Deacon of Aries, first 2 Deacon of Taurus. The Prince of Pentacles is heir of Earth, specific heir of primal Earth. In the Golden Dawn card he holds a wand of earthly dominion in his right hand and an inverted orb, material force grossly applied, in his left. The chariot is pulled by the powerful bull of Taurus. Crowley explained his version of this card in considerable depth, emphasizing the meditative qualities of the prince. He is, Crowley said, the element of earth become intelligible. The beams of chest and jabura meet in Netsic, and thence in Netsic arises a green, pure, brilliant, liquid and gleaming like an emerald. And the sphere of its operations is that of Naga or external splendor, producing zeal, love, harmony, and it ruleth the sphere of action of the planet Venus and the nature of the vegetable world. And Jehovah Sabaoth is a god of hosts and of armies, of triumph and of victory, ruling the universe in justice and eternity. And its archangel Haniel is the prince of love and harmony, and the name of the order of angels is Elohim, or gods, who are also called the order of principalities. Each of the Sephiroth on the pillar of mercy begins a sequence. Chakma is the primary force toward manifestation in the supernal triangle. Chest is the organizing idea behind the first form, and the first sephira of the ethical triangle. Netsic begins the astral triangle, and is the first of the Sephiroth making up the personality. The personality is viewed as being composed of 4 elements, each of which is represented by one of the lower Sephiroth. And this is a reflection of the familiar tetragrammaton formula, and of the familiar sequence of fire, water, air and earth. These are the astral elements. Netsic is fire, a lower form of the Yod fire of Chakma, reflected from Jabura through Tifereth. Hod is water, a lower form of the He water of Binah, reflected from chest through Tifereth. Yezard is air and Malkuth is earth. It will be noted that the final head of the divine name is attributed to Malkuth in every instance, for this final head is the result of the fall. The attribution of the 4 elements to these lower Sephiroth may appear to add one more frustrating complication to the Qabalistic system. But, in fact, we have now reached the point on the Tree of Life where normal waking consciousness may apply. It is with the astral triangle and the component parts of the personality that any serious student may deal. The Order of the Golden Dawn introduced its members to the inner planes through a system of tattva exercises, a sort of controlled daydream, intended to bring the individual into direct contact with the subtle elemental realms immediately underlying the material sphere of sensation. This method was considered preparatory to the more advanced techniques of scrying with the tarot cards and to the most advanced and dangerous techniques of scrying with the squares of the Enochian tablets. Suffice it to say here that the astral realm, begun with Netsic, is the realm of illusion, Maya. Netsic cannot be considered without Hod, its balance and opposite. For as Netsic represents the instincts and emotions, Hod represents the intellect. Feelings unchecked by reason and reason unchecked by feelings can be very destructive. It is through the proper balance of feeling and reason that one is able to rise, on the middle pillar, to the higher consciousness of Tifereth. Netsic is a particularly difficult sephira to understand. This is partly because it represents the first undifferentiated projections of Tifereth, and partly because it must be approached from the standpoints of both the macrocosm and the microcosm. When we deal with the Tree of Life, we are dealing with the patterns of the race of mankind and with the patterns of the individual. But one of the lessons of the mysteries is the extent to which this dichotomy is, in itself, an illusion. On the one hand, Netsic is the undifferentiated soul of mankind, often described as the group mind. The spark of the individual mind, appreciating again that this is described as a fiery sephira, is a part of that group which, as it becomes self-comprehending, also comprehends the whole. For example, Netsic is the area on the Tree of Life to which the arts, music, painting, poetry, etc. are attributed. Every artist uses the qualities of Netsic, drawing his creative imagination from it, although to produce a serious work, that feeling must be tempered by the discipline of Hod reason. As the artist increasingly develops the ability to create and to understand the nature of his own creative act, he also develops an understanding of the nature of the arts in general. The same may be said for a scientist who functions through Hod, the sephira where the general becomes specific. The balance of Netsic and Hod may be shown in a simple diagram. In view of this balance, it will be easily appreciated that Netsic is the sephira to which the forces of nature are attributed, its angels being the Elohim. They are also called gods in that they are so for the personality and incarnation and for mankind as a race. They are the gods of the lower sequence of the tetragrammaton. Netsic is also the sphere of Venus Aphrodite, the goddess of love. And as the title of the sephira is victory, it is to be understood that the victory is in love. What is called love, particularly as it relates to gods and religious systems, is often misunderstood. The misunderstanding has to do with the very nature of the gods themselves. It has been said that the gods are the creations of the created. The gods are emanations of the group mind of races, they are not emanations of Ehia, the one and eternal. The reference to the group mind states, in essence, that the gods are of Netzik. This idea is graphically summed up in the diagram of the symbol of Venus, which encompasses the entire tree of life. It will also be recalled that the Order of the Golden Dawn declared itself to be under the rulership of Venus. The point here is that there are no gods, save those potent forces which we have formed in our own image, to serve our needs. There is nothing but us. We are the above and the below of the emerald tablet. We are at once, the many and the one. We are all that is, though we draw our strength from the divine unmanifest which is not. Thus, the manner in which we behave toward one another is of far greater import than is generally appreciated. The love of one's fellow man, the love of God, any sexual relationship which is a psychic balance and, in fact, any balanced exchange of energy between individuals, assists the race in the great work of returning to the primal state from which it evolved. It is for this reason that Netzik is described as a sephira of polarities. In Netzik we are considering a sephira on the masculine pillar with a female goddess attached to it. However, the attribution of specific sexual characteristics labeled male and female is appropriate only to our own sphere of sensation. What is found in Netzik is the interplay of Mars and Venus. As was previously discussed, Jabura has certain Venus qualities, symbolized by the rose. Netzik has certain Mars qualities, indicated by the attribution of fire. Moreover, Sabaoth is the god of hosts and of armies. The relationship between Netzik and Jabura, and that of Hod and Chest, may be slightly confusing when considered in terms of the emanation of the Sephiroth on the path of the flaming sword. That path is important in that it indicates both the sequence in which the universe evolved and the course by which the seeker, save those who choose the devotional path of the middle pillar, may return. However, this does not represent the balance and interrelationships of energies on the completed tree of life. There are three key symbols related to Netzik. These are the rose, the girdle and the lamp. The rose is the most perfect of flowers, an attribute of Venus often associated with love. The girdle, also, is a traditional Venus attribute. To learn the secret of the knot in her girdle means to direct the Venus forces of nature, to tie them up, or to release them at will. The final symbol is the lamp, the bearer of fire, relating Netzik to Jabura and the powerful, warring forces of Mars. At another level, it is the ever-burning light of the temple of the lower self. The sevens generally shows a force transcending the material plane and is like unto a crown which is indeed powerful but requireth one capable of wearing it. The sevens then show a positive result which is dependent on the action then taken. They depend much on the symbols that accompany them. Seven of Wands, Lord of Valor, Mars in Leo. Angels of the Deacon. Mahashaya and Lelahul. This is Netzik and Atziluth, the influence of Netzik in the world of pure spirit. The position of Mars in Leo is one of courage and strength, but with threatening overtones. A fiery clash is certain, but victory in the fray is not. It will be noted that the basic pattern was established with the Marseille card, which uses 6 crossed wands and 1 central one. In adapting this design, Crowley again uses the wands of the 3 Golden Dawn adepts, but crosses them with a very crude club to suggest that the battle in this card may be a disordered and disorganized one of uncertain results. Wade illustrates the idea of opposition and possible victory, depending upon the amount of courage exercised. 7 of Cups, Lord of Illusory Success, Venus in Scorpio. Angels of the Deacon. Melchel and Chahavaya. This is Netzik and Brya, the influence of Netzik in the mental world. Venus in Scorpio is extremely intense and emotional, often involving deceit. Sometimes this is dissipation, a wallowing in emotions, or a self-deception. It can certainly be a card of egocentricity and selfishness. And, although the Golden Dawn card shows the cups to be completely empty, one might believe them to be full as weight shows. Crowley, on the other hand, implies that there is a great warning in this card. His lotuses have become ugly and slimy, a perversion of the sacrament of the cup and 6, possibly brought about by the inflation of ego. Thus, the divinatory meaning of the card is error, illusion and illusionary success. 7 of Swords, Lord of Unstable Effort, Moon in Aquarius. Angels of the Deacon. Michael and Hahihul. This is Netzik and Yutsira, the influence of Netzik in the astral world. In the Golden Dawn card, the rose is restored, for it is a symbol primary to Venus, who rules Netzik. But the swords are precariously balanced against it, one against the other, an idea also expressed by Crowley's 6 planetary swords, aimed against a larger one of the sun. It is not entirely clear what is going on, particularly in the weight card, which is genuinely enigmatic. And that is the point, for in divination this card means unstable effort, vacillation and untrustworthy character. The moon in Aquarius indicates sociability, often religious inclination. The moon is less fluid and changeable here than in other positions. However, the balances which it establishes are precarious and easily upset. 7 of Pentacles, Lord of Success unfulfilled, Saturn and Taurus. Angels of the Deacon. Harachiel and Mitzral. This is Netzik and Asaya, the influence of Netzik in the material world. As with the rest of the sevens, there is very little good to be gained. Saturn and Taurus brings disappointment and a great deal of work for little reward. The beams of Jubura and Tifereth meet in Hod, and thence arises in Hod a brilliant pure and flashing orange tawny. And the sphere of its operation is that of Kakab, the stellar light, bestowing elegance, swiftness, scientific knowledge and art, and constancy of speech, and it ruleth the sphere of the action of the planet Mercury. And Elohim Tsabaoth is also a god of hosts and of armies, of mercy and agreement, of praise and honor, ruling the universe in wisdom and harmony. And its archangel is Michael, the prince of splendor and of wisdom, and the name of its order of angels is Beni Elohim, or sons of the gods, who are also called the order of archangels. Hod is the concrete mind. It is the sphere of Mercury, and to it are attributed all that is intellectually systematized, such as the magical arts, literature, science and commerce. It is at the base of the pillar of form beneath Binah, as Netzik is at the base of the pillar of force beneath Chakma. And in these two lower Sephiroth is seen the same balance of form and force found in the supernals. The difference is that this pattern is expressible in terms which can be conceptualized and understood by our minds. While in Chakma and Binah it was necessary to speak in the most abstract and symbolic terms, such as the idea of outpouring force, or the idea of form which restricts force, we are now dealing with concepts which can be immediately understood in terms of the makeup of the individual personality. The symbolism is closer to home. In the human personality, the fire of Netzik is the animal intuition, while the water of Hod is the concrete rational mind. The tarot, often called the Book of Thoth, is referred to Hod. Thoth, Egyptian, Hermes, Greek, and Mercury, Roman, are different names of the same god. Each is a messenger, patron of learning and teacher of the mysteries. All language, a carrier of messages, relates to Hod. In the Golden Dawn version of the 10th card of the tarot, the Wheel of Fortune, the dog-headed ape at the bottom is Cynocephalus, companion of Thoth. It was also the Egyptian hieroglyphic symbol for writing. Cynocephalus related to the moon, as Thoth related to Mercury. And in ancient astronomy, the moon was believed to follow Mercury like a faithful dog. Note the dogs in all versions of the moon, key 18. By extension of this idea, we understand that language is the faithful companion of the student of the mysteries. Words of power are his greatest instrument. This is the reason that names and versicles relate to Hod. It is not easy to persuade natural doubters that a word, properly vibrated, can have a powerful effect on the inner planes. Yet the effect of words on our own plane is obvious. Who can be indifferent to words such as I love you or I hate you? But to be effective, words must have feeling behind them. In the same way that I love you or I hate you sounds strange and empty unless expressed with emotion, the words of power of Hod are only effective when they are projected with the intense feelings of Netzik. In other words, the dynamic energy of Netzik is brought to bear through the vehicle of the words. This is the reason that so many fail in their attempts at ritual. Words alone will not suffice. The form of Hod is useless without the force of Netzik. And the reverse is also true. Those who approach esoteric studies with great vitality and enthusiasm, but lack the discipline of Hod, are wasting their time. And those who fail to bring the intuition of Netzik to bear on the many words written about the inner sciences will quickly decide that the Hermetic mysteries are pedantic and lifeless. It is said that whosoever learns to pronounce the name of God, the Tetragrammaton, will be master of the universe. And when we see that the Qabalistic fourfold division encompasses many names, attributes of the One, each of which requires a different learning experience to pronounce, the statement makes special sense. The names of the system are of Hod, but the beginning of the ability to properly use them is in Netzik, whose gods encompass the whole tree. Form is limitation. It is restriction. There can be no form without a force which is in some way restricted. So found in Hod are the dynamic qualities of the Netzik force, which are limited in order that they can be dealt with through our normal process of thought. This limitation takes the form of both language and visual image, which are a far more interchangeable currency than some might believe. They are both sets of comprehensible symbols agreed upon by societies for the transmission of messages. We know that language is artificial and has no intrinsic qualities of its own. The same is true for visual images, such as the sign of the cross, the tarot cards, or even what we perceive to be a tree on this earth. These are carriers of idea, which are neutral in themselves. For this reason, the hermaphrodite is the magical image of Hod. It is in Hod that the carriers of idea are separated out. In evolution, Hod completes the pillar of form. It is a stabilizing balance to the completion of force, a balance which is modified in Yesod and emanates our material world in Malkuth. Hod and Netzik, like Jabura and Chest, are effective only when their energies are actively merged in a third Sephira. In this case, we see the merger of Mercury, Hod, and Venus, Netzik, giving rise to the moon, Yesod. The second major symbol of Hod, the apron, also refers to the moon, as does Thoth himself in one aspect. This apron is a traditional Masonic symbol. It is the symbol of the builder who is the craftsman of the mysteries, and one which, when worn, covers the sexual organs attributed to Yesod. And, as we move to consider Yesod, we shall see the extent to which the manipulation of sexual energies is the basis of all practical work. So, in the great scheme of return toward the Godhead from our material condition, Hod is a primary point, a point of conceptual transfer. Here the masters first contact their chosen disciplines, clothing themselves in forms comprehensible to the human mind. Here are presented to the student the formal tools of the Hermetic path, as opposed to the Orphic path of Netzik, or the devotional path of the middle pillar. All of this is a great deal less mysterious than it may seem. It may appear that to deal with Hod, or any other Sephira, means only the projection of oneself into this sphere by ritual or meditative techniques. These are, of course, important. But we use the forces of Hod whenever we immerse ourselves in the documents of the mysteries, or whenever we approach anything intellectually. The Sephiroth are integral parts of ourselves, in a state of constant activity. The principle of the practical Qabbalah is that we turn our conscious attention toward a particular aspect of ourselves and thereby gain access to the corresponding part of the greater universe. As there are 400 trees of life, we function consciously at the highest level which our spiritual development will allow. One final point which must be made is that while Mercury is the teacher of the mysteries, he is also the god of deceit and trickery. One writer recently suggested that this aspect partly represents the adaptability required for esoteric work and conferred by the Hod energies. But, as has been said, the whole astral realm seeks to deceive. When we deal with the astral images, we do so with all of the perceptual vulnerability of our human minds. We are particularly susceptible to this in the alternately bright and murky sphere of Yesod. And it is in Hod that we begin to understand the mechanisms of our perceptions. The eights generally show solitary success, that is, success in the matter for the time being, but not leading to much result apart from the thing itself. Eight of Wands, Lord of Swiftness, Mercury and Sagittarius. Angels of the Deacon. Nithahaya and Haya. This is Hod and Atziluth, the influence of Hod in the world of pure spirit. Mercury is not well placed here, it is in its detriment in Sagittarius. Its energies are mitigated and quickly expended in the sign of the Archer, a phenomenon which Crowley has likened to electricity in his card. The divinatory meaning is swiftness or rapidity. Eight of Cups, Lord of Abandoned Success, Saturn and Pisces. Angels of the Deacon. Vavalaya and Yelahaya. This is Hod and Braya, the influence of Hod in the mental world. Saturn in the water sign Pisces brings about subtle problems and a certain introspection which manifests as a sense of disinterest with the material condition. The effect of water on Saturn is to produce discontent, the abandoned success, or decline of interest in anything which this card means. That idea is shown by Waite's figure which walks away from the cups. Eight of Swords, Lord of Shortened Force, Jupiter in Gemini. Angels of the Deacon. Vemable and Yehohel. This is Hod and Yutsira, the influence of Hod in the astral world. The weakness of Jupiter, expansiveness, here in its detriment, allows the natural dualities of Gemini to affect its positive energies. They are cut back or shortened by a desire to go first in one direction and then another. The application of Jupiter force in this sign may be erratic and unstable, or it may be intense and positive, though brief in duration. Crowley attempts to show this by making all eight swords different. Waite, on the other hand, illustrated the effect of this condition of energies. Shortened force, narrowness or restriction, a prison. Eight of Pentacles, Lord of Prudence, Sun in Virgo, Angels of the Deacon. Acana and Kehethel. This is Hod and Asaya, the influence of Hod in the material world. The planetary aspect here is a very practical one which tends to cause concern with small details. Like the rest of the eights, any gain which may appear is limited, and prudence is no great virtue. Waite's craftsman illustrates the meaning of the card in divination, skill, prudence, and over-carefulness about small things, at the expense of the great. The beams of Chest and Jabura meet in Yesod, and thence ariseth in Yesod a brilliant deep violet purple or puce, and thus is the third triad completed. And the sphere of its operation is that of Levana, the lunar beam, bestowing change, increase and decrease upon created things, and it ruleth the sphere of action of the moon, and the nature of mankind. And Shaddai is a god who sheddeth benefits, omnipotent and satisfying, and Ai Kai is the god of life, the living one. Its archangel is Gabriel, the prince of change and alteration. And the name of the order of angels is cherubim or cherubic ones, who are also called the order of angels. As we approach the ninth Sephira, what has previously been considered theoretically may become very practical. In Yezard are those energies, directly underlying the material world, which are manipulated in various forms of meditation, and in what is called magic. These currents are known as the astral light or akashic fluid. In the mid-19th century, von Reichenbach, one of the first scientific investigators of psychic phenomenon, described this as the otic forces, a term still occasionally employed. Whatever this energy is called, it is an energy which each person has the capacity to experience within himself and to profoundly develop. Everyone feels the presence of the astral light, though most dismiss it as a generalized neurological stimulation, attributable to some vague physical cause. It may be felt as an overall tingling sensation, or as a pervasive warmth often resulting from prayer or sexual stimulation. A few discover that this feeling can be intensified, and the energy made to move around the body at will. This force is sexual, and it is seen that in Microprosopis Yezard covers the generative organs. Those who excite this force through meditation, prayer, sexual stimulation or ritual methods do so using precisely the same mental mechanisms. It has been said that God is sex, and the records of ecstatic union made by those such as Saint Teresa are highly erotic. When the astral light of Yezad, the sexual forces, are directed consciously and circulated throughout the body as in the Qabalistic exercise of the middle pillar, the effect can be overwhelming. The astral light has often been described as an electrical or magnetic current. Indeed, as one brings down the light, the effect is of one's body being highly charged. Yet this is an energy which is plastic. It is mentally malleable. Not only can it be circulated throughout the body or projected in certain spiritual operations, but it is the raw material from which visual images are built on the astral plane. Each individual has an etheric body, which leaves the physical body naturally in sleep, or is consciously projected by the adept, formed of the astral light. Thus, Yezard is termed the foundation. It is that which activates the four elements of Malkuth, repeating a pattern seen throughout the entire tree, beginning at Kether. Four elements which are rooted in a fifth. The energy of the astral light is, in the East, called Kundalini, the serpent, and it is declared by Kabbalists that Kundalini is coiled in Yezad. It is not a difficult stretch of mind to the correct esoteric interpretation of the serpent in the Garden of Eden, or been shown on the Tree of Life, touching each and every path. This is the same serpent of wisdom which holds its tail in its mouth. One particularly appropriate aspect of the symbolism of the serpent here is that the reptile moves by undulations. In the same way, the astral light weaves back and forth. It follows distinct cycles which underlie and activate the cycles of our physical existence. The phases of Yezard cause a continual motion of charge and discharge on the physical plane, expressed as light and dark, waking and sleeping, etc. Thus, it is truly said that one cannot deal with Malkuth without first understanding Yezad. And of course, by extension of this idea, one cannot deal with Yezad without first understanding Had. Parenthetically, it is to Yezard that parapsychology research is directed, since it is possible to use some of the current tools of science to quantify its effect on the sensory plane. Those who work in this area of research have found it necessary to at least postulate the existence of some force like the astral light, as an explanation of the ways in which wonders such as psychokinesis, the ability to move objects mentally, are accomplished. The moon is the planet, so described by ancient astronomy, attributed to Yezad. As it waxes and wanes, it is said to control the motion of the tides. And the supposed disorienting effect of the full moon on some is reflected in our very term lunatic. Yet we conceptualize the moon as belonging not only to the insane, but to lovers. The psychologist may find a common root in both conditions, which is the point, but one is ugly and the other beautiful. Such is the typical dichotomy of the symbols attached to the moon. It is both the witch goddess Hecate, in its darkness, and the moon goddess Diana in its brightness. It is on the latter aspect that the esotericist concentrates, for with the increase of the moon, there is a concomitant increase in the astral light underlying our plane, which may be turned to practical use. A relationship between Yezad and Binah is suggested by the moon's control of the waters. Yezad is actually air, which moves the water. Binah is the great sea, and is Isis. This is the universal unconscious from which all form ultimately develops. As Binah is the will to form, so Yezod is the storehouse of formal images directly behind our conscious experience. As the lowest level of the astral world, Yezod is the realm of images cast off by mankind, bright and dark. It contains the Akashic record, which is both the history of races and of each individual mental act of man. Blavatsky claimed that much of her extraordinarily detailed writing was gleaned psychically from this record, a flamboyant claim at least. The images of Yezod are fabulous in their beauty and seductiveness, they can also be hideous and frightening. These are the dreams and fears of humanity, built up since the beginning of time. Note, again, the relationship with Binah. It is, in fact, a great ocean, into which every pebble of thought is thrown, producing a wave which continues eternally. However, these Yezod forms are elusive. They are not real in the sense that the term would be applied to experience of Tifereth. Recall that the moon has no light of its own, Yezod can only reflect the light of the Christ-Osiris-Buddha center of Tifereth. Yet this reflection is of the greatest importance for the developing individual, since one cannot look directly into the sun and must learn about that force by considering its image reflected in the waters of the moon. The lower astral is also called Maya or illusion. The powers of the astral plane are pleased to let us believe whatever amuses us. They will provide visions to corroborate the most absurd of notions, while at the same time inflating our egos, a very dangerous and common result of work at this level. This is a maze for the unsuspecting which can be effectively negotiated only by those whose sights are unfaltering set on Tifereth. The vision of Yezod, that of the machinery of the universe, may be hard-won by those tightly locked into the framework of their personalities. It should be clear, by this point, that an understanding of the cosmic tides of Yezod's astral light and its use confers power. And, contrary to popular belief, and to the numerous systems of enlightenment preaching firm moral values, understanding of, and ability to manipulate, the astral light has nothing whatsoever to do with virtue. It is acquired purely and simply by meditative discipline. There are some exceedingly unpleasant people walking the earth today who may rightly lay claim to real understanding of the workings of the universe. The symbols of Yezod are the sandals and the perfumes, both relating to practical magic. The consecrated sandals worn within the mystic circle affirm that one stands on sacred ground and, in their neutrality, allow for the transfer of energies between the earth below and the sun above. Yezod is the intermediary between Malkuth and Tifereth, a two-sided mirror. Perfumes suggest its fluid and etheric qualities. Incense floats through a church or temple, subtly affecting the minds of the participants. Its qualities are suggestive, yet fleeting and illusory, which is the nature of Yezod. The nines. Generally they show very great fundamental force. Executive power, because they rest on a firm base, powerful for good or evil. 9 of Wands, Lord of great strength, Moon in Sagittarius. Angels of the Deacon. Yurthiel and Sahaya. This is Yezod and Atziluth, the influence of Yezod in the world of pure spirit. The lunar powers acquire great strength in Sagittarius, although wherever Yezod and the moon are concerned, there is always another side to the coin. Successes are accompanied by strife and apprehension. The good health which this aspect conveys is certain, but with doubt about the course it may later take. In divination the card means great strength, power, recovery from sickness. 9 of Cups, Lord of material happiness, Jupiter in Pisces. Angels of the Deacon. Salaya and Ariel. This is Yezod and Braya, the influence of Yezod in the mental world. Here the benevolence of Jupiter, functioning through the water of Pisces, affects happiness and satisfaction in Malkuth. This is a card of pleasure and sensuality which should be compared with the 10 of Cups, the success of which is more lasting. Both the Crowley and Golden Dawn cards show 9 cups overflowing and arranged in a square intended to suggest chess Jupiter and the perfection of water force here. Weight, on the other hand, illustrates the more mundane aspects of the card in its meaning of complete success and the fulfillment of wishes. 9 of Swords, Lord of despair and cruelty, Mars in Gemini. Angels of the Deacon. Anaval and Machael. This is Yezod and Yetzirah, the influence of Yetzirah in the astral world. It takes little familiarity with astrology to recognize that the fiery Mars energy could do no good in the sign of dualities. In the Golden Dawn card the rose has been completely destroyed, while Crowley's version shows poison and blood dripping from the 9 jagged and rusty swords. Waite's card stresses the card's despair and the other divinatory meanings of illness, suffering and cruelty. 9 of Pentacles, Lord of material gain, Venus in Virgo. Angels of the Deacon. Hazael and Aldiah. This is Yezod and Asaya, the influence of Yezod in the material world. Venus in Virgo brings great efficiency, but with a relative lack of overt feelings. The aspect tends also to favor the amassing of things, it is thus a card of material gain. This is suggested by the Golden Dawn pentacles, each of which has a fully developed rosebud beside it, the central one having 2 buds to indicate continuing growth and acquisition on the physical plane. Crowley's card is particularly interesting, being far more complicated than it might first appear. He says of it, the discs are arranged as an equilateral triangle of 3, apex upwards, close together, and surrounded at some distance by a ring, 6 larger discs in the form of a hexagram. This signifies the multiplication of the original established word by the mingling of good luck and management. In divination, the card means inheritance or material gain. And from the rays of this triad Netzach, Hod, Yesod there appear 3 colors in Malkuth, together with a 4th, which is their synthesis. Thus from the orange tawny of Hod and the green nature of Netzach, there goeth forth a certain greenish citrine color, yet pure and translucent withal. From the orange tawny of Hod mingled with the puce of Yesod there goeth forth a certain red russet brown, russet yet gleaming with a hidden fire. And from the green of Netzach and the puce of Yesod, there goeth forth a certain other darkening green olive yet rich and glowing withal. And the synthesis of all these is a blackness which bordereth upon the clippeth. Thus are the colors of the Sephiroth completed in their feminine or rainbow scale. Moreover, though the Tree of Life operates through all the 10 Sephiroth, yet it is referred in a special manner to Tifereth. Also, though the branches of the Tree of Knowledge of Good and Evil stretch into the 7 lower Sephiroth and downwards into the Kingdom of Shells, yet it is referred especially unto Malkuth. Similarly with Netzach and Hod, the right and left columns of the Sephiroth are referred respectively thereto. In Malkuth Adonai Haaretz is God, the Lord and King, ruling over the kingdom and empire which is the visible universe. And Shalom Yesodith, the breaker of foundations, or Olam Yesodith, the world of the elements, is the name of the sphere of the operation of Malkuth, which is called the sphere of elements, from which all things are formed, and its archangels are 3. Metatron, the prince of countenance reflected from Kether, and Sandalphon, the prince of prayer, feminine, and Nephesh HaMessiah, the soul of the reconciler for earth. And the order of angels is a shimmer flames of fire, as it is written, who maketh his angels spirits and his ministers as a flaming fire, and these are also called the order of blessed souls, or the souls of the just made perfect. Malkuth is the most complicated of the Sephiroth, Kether is the most simple. And yet, applying the principle of as above, so below, we appreciate that Kether is in Malkuth, and Malkuth is in Kether. Ultimately, God is in everything we know, from the field to the dirt on which we walk. No matter what is on the earth is infused with the divine nature. The separation between creator and created is artificial. God is man. Man is God. We are God collectively, and we are God individually. We are parts, and we are the whole. The perceived separation is the result of the fall, and the great work of returning to the Godhead begins with the recognition, or, perhaps, the suspicion, that our perceptions have been inaccurate. Thus, to Malkuth is assigned the virtue of discrimination. Its spiritual experience is the vision of the holy guardian angel, an aspect of the higher self. It is in Malkuth that its existence is demonstrated, whereas to Tifereth is ascribed the conscious union of the personality with this higher genius. The idea of unity in all, and of the divine power indwelling in every aspect of our material world, may seem obvious to those with a natural inclination toward the mysteries. But, over the centuries, many religious sects have taught that the material world is inherently evil, a point of view which is ultimately counterproductive and escapist. The same may be said for certain fundamentalist Christian attitudes, which suggest that man should give himself up to the will in God, to the extent that it is a virtual abrogation of individual responsibility. The Qabalah teaches that the body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, and that unless we learn the lessons of Malkuth, there can be no lasting progress beyond. The fact is that our first spiritual lessons come from those around us. And if we cannot function effectively on the material level, learning from the day-to-day patterns which we have chosen for our incarnation, it is unlikely that we will be able to function effectively on a more refined spiritual plane. The ability to sense the importance of the ordinary is a special form of discrimination. All meditation, all tarot divination and scrying, begins and ends with an affirmation of the strength and stability of the earth. One must first be grounded before invoking the divine light. And, particularly, at the close of a projective exercise, it is necessary to potently affirm a return to normal consciousness. Otherwise, a dissociation or pathological confusion of planes may result. The lesson of Malkuth, the balance of the 4 aspects of the personality, through a process which might be described as one of compensation, is all important as one learns to rise on the planes. The personality must be totally readjusted and rebalanced after each new spiritual experience, a process which takes place in Malkuth. The waking consciousness is reintegrated as self-perspective changes. We learn not in a consistent flow, but rather through a natural process of activity and passivity, stop and go. First we acquire information, or a new set of values, and then we stop to integrate that material into our system. This must happen before the lessons can be applied, which is the reason that one cannot truly use the powers of any Sephira until he has been initiated into the Sephira above it. Repeatedly throughout the tree, there has been reference to the 4 elements in the pattern of the Tetragrammaton. Malkuth is the sphere where the elements are ultimately based. They intermingle to produce the stability which we know as matter. These are not the same as the fire, water, air and earth which we see and touch, although they are the motive force behind those elements. In the simplest of terms, although it may sound totally fanciful, when one lights a match one does so only through the fire force of the salamanders, elemental fire. The elementals, which, in the tattva exercises we contact in more or less agreed upon anthropomorphic shapes, are the forces behind the forms of the mundane chakra, the material world. The mundane chakra of each category of existence is in Asaya, the lowest of the 4 worlds. Here we may again consider the idea that each Sephira contains an entire tree. The Malkuth of Malkuth and Asaya is the ground on which we walk. The Tifereth of Malkuth and Asaya is the sun in our sky, Netzach is Venus, Hod is Mercury, and Yesod is the moon. Yet that which we perceive is only the surface of the material world. Matter, the whole of Asaya, is composed of particles invisible to the eye. We see them only through enormous electronic magnification in the same way that the forces which activate these particles can only be seen with the inner vision. The exercise of the tattvas are of Asaya, although they may easily be deepened into the Yetziratic world. When we deal with the gnomes, we are tapping the forces of stability directly beneath our sphere of sensation, forces which are an amalgam of aspects of 3 elements within the 4th. Malkuth is a quadripartite unity. To deal with the sylphs means to handle the motive force or air, directly beneath Yesod's mundane chakra, the moon. The undines are in Hod Mercury, and the salamanders of Netzach Venus. A great deal will be gained by meditation on the position of Malkuth at the base of the tree of life on the middle pillar. It is a receptacle for all of the energies of the tree. They feed into Malkuth and are grounded in its stability. The word inertia has been applied to this Sephira, meaning a state of rest, stasis, rather than inactivity, as continual motion is the law of nature. The difference between Malkuth and other Sephiroth is that it is self-contained in the same way as is Kether. Malkuth is called the Bride of Microprosopis, a title which relates beautifully to the tarot princesses. The prince is Tifereth, who rules over the personality it projects for each incarnation. But for the personality to perform its task, it must function within a given structure. The princess, taken as a bride by the prince, who is actually a king, is the very structure, kingdom, through which the prince rules. For example, we repeatedly have noted that in Christian iconography the Virgin Mary, Bina Isis, is the church. She is the building, she is the rituals, she is the supportive structure without which the religion would not function. Considered at a less symbolic level, the choice of the prince to take the princess as his bride is our own personal choice to enter a new incarnation with a new personality. The higher self of Tifereth builds the personality using the sequential energies of Netzach, Hod and Yesod. That personality is expressed through the vehicle of matter in Malkuth, the Sephira also referred to as the gateway. 2 principles unite, giving rise to a third, which is expressed in a 4th tetragrammaton. Insofar as Malkuth is the earth, it is active and productive, and is called the inferior mother. On the lower arc, she is an expression of the energies of Bina, the supernal mother. And here we realize that the union of the vow and He final, like that of the Yod and He, must produce something further. What is produced is a renewed activity at the point of Kether, which reactivates the outgoing force of Chakma, which sustains the formalizing energies of Bina, and so on. It is a continuous cycle symbolized by the egg, or by the serpent which holds its tail in its mouth. But this cycle becomes ever tighter, pulling closer to Kether with each downward and then upward swing. There must eventually come a point in the evolution of the spirit of mankind where the tree of life no longer describes our universe. The primary symbols of Malkuth are the altar of the double cube and the equal-armed cross. The altar of the Western mysteries is black and is formed of 2 cubes on top of the other. The reference here is to the as above, so below. Moreover, the 6 sides relate to Tifereth. The equal-armed cross is the balanced elements. The other 2 symbols are the mystic circle, which defines and encloses sacred ground, and the triangle of art in which evocation takes place. Evocation is very different from invocation. To evoke is to bring something from another plane into physical manifestation, generally using heavy incense as an etheric vehicle. To invoke is to call upon a specific form of the divine presence, which is in the nature of prayer, though a great deal more practical. The tens generally show fixed, culminated, completed force, whether good or evil. The matter thoroughly and definitely determined. Similar to the force of the nines, but ultimating it and carrying it out. 10 of Wands, Lord of Oppression, Saturn and Sagittarius. Angels of the Deacon. Riel and Avamel. This is Malkuth and Atziluth, the influence of Malkuth in the world of pure spirit. The destructive powers of Saturn are amplified by the swiftness of Sagittarius, leading to material force selfishly applied, usually with cruelty. Crowley shows the nature of this force by using wands which are no longer elegant, but which, rather, are crude clubs. Waite's card uses a heavy burden to suggest cruelty and malice, overbearing force and energy, injustice. 10 of Cups, Lord of Perfected Success, Mars in Pisces. Angels of the Deacon. Azliah and Mil. This is Malkuth and Brya, the influence of Malkuth in the unconscious mental world. Here is a situation where the generally understood astrological meaning of an aspect does not apply. In an astrological reading, Mars in Pisces, a watery sign, would signify a dispersal of energy and a degree of frustration. But the meaning here is that the fire of Mars causes the waters of the final sign of the zodiac to rush furiously in Brya, bringing great success on the material plane. As all of the card images suggest, the happiness is inspired from above. On the other hand, it should be remembered that the tarot, when used for divination, is best applied to mundane matters. The meaning of this aspect may be considered different if applied to a more spiritual plane. In ordinary divination, the meaning is matters definitely arranged and settled as wished, permanent and lasting success. 10 of Swords, Lord of Ruin, Sun in Gemini. Angels of the Deacon. Dambea and Menkel. This is Malkuth and Yutsira, the influence of Malkuth in the astral world. From the standpoint of material things, this is the most destructive card in the deck, and no one likes to see it appear in a spread. But those who use the tarot as an instrument of spiritual development learn not to take life's experiences at face value. And insofar as the tarot is used to predict future events, the statement can be made about it that can be made about astrology: the stars impel, they do not compel. We are not slaves to our destiny, but have the capacity, through inner processes, to considerably improve our earthly lot. To do so is no less ethical than resigning a position when it is clear that some work-related disaster is on the horizon, or walking on the sidewalk when the cards tell you that if you walk in the street, you will probably be struck by an oncoming automobile. We should use the capacities we have been given. The divinatory meaning of this card is ruin, failure, disaster. This is more of a death card than is death, which generally means a situational death, a transformation. 10 of Pentacles, Lord of Wealth, Mercury and Virgo. Angels of the Deacon. Hahaya and Leviah. This is Malkuth and Asaya, the influence of Malkuth in the material world. Mercury, god of commerce, rules the earthly sign Virgo. Placement here assures material gain so vast that it may lose its importance, a situation described as an embarrassed to riches. The Golden Dawn version follows the same pattern as the Marseille deck, showing gain by the roses in full bloom. Both Waite and Crowley use the whole tree of life to suggest completion. Following the planetary attribution, Crowley's tree shows various symbols for Mercury. The princesses. They represent the forces of the hephinal of the name in each suit, completing the influences of the other scales. The mighty and potent daughter of a king and queen. A princess powerful and terrible. A queen of queens, an empress, whose effect combines those of the king, queen and prince. Yet her power existeth not save by reason of the others, and then indeed it is mighty and terrible materially, and is the throne of the forces of the spirit. Woe unto whosoever shall make war upon her when thus established. Princess of Wands, Princess of the Shining Flame, the Rose of the Palace of Fire, Princess and Empress of the Salamanders, Throne of the Ace of Wands. The Princess of Wands is Earth of Fire, the personification of specific earth of primal fire. In the Golden Dawn card, her hand rests upon a golden altar decorated with ram's heads, Aries, reminding us that in the system of deacons, it is Aries which both begins and ends the series. The fire being sacrificed on the altar of Malkuth, the fire of the wand, now so imposing as to be considered a dangerous club, and the fire beneath her feet shoot upwards. This card is as dynamic and unpredictable as the tiger, which is the crest of the princess. In this card, as in all Ort cards, Crowley attempts to represent the activity of the force in question. His swirling, dancing figure, inseparable from the tiger, is the mundane aspect of fire. Here, especially, Crowley's dependence on the Golden Dawn designs is clear. One must, finally, comment on the Waite pages and the knaves of the Marseille deck, both of which are exoteric. Insofar as these cards are the bride of Microprosopis, they must be shown as female. The half-final is the inferior mother. Waite knew this and was perhaps avoiding an idea which he considered an esoteric secret. Princess of Cups, Princess of the Water and Lotus of the Palace of the Floods, Princess and Empress of Nymphs and Undines, Throne of the Ace of Cups. The Princess of Cups is Earth of Water, the personification of specific earth and primal water. In the Golden Dawn card there are three important symbols: the turtle, the swan and the dolphin, the latter having been discussed in regard to the Two of Cups. The turtle is a symbol of wisdom because it withdraws into its own shell. It is also related to long life and subsistence. But the swan is the key symbol for this princess, who wears a cloak of soft feathers. The swan is related to Orpheus, who chose to be reborn in that form, and thus to the lyre and all musical forms. The tradition among seamen is that the swan brings good fortune. As in his Princess of Wands, Crowley abstracts the three symbols of the Golden Dawn card, although he describes the form issuing from the cup as the tortoise, which in Hinduism has on its back the elephant, which supports the universe. This is, therefore, a card of emergent life from the sea and of matter crystallizing within water. Princess of Swords, Princess of the Rushing Winds, Lotus of the Palace of Air, Princess and Empress of the Sylphs and Sylphides, Throne of the Ace of Swords. The Princess of Swords is Earth of Air, personification of specific earth and primal air. The Golden Dawn Princess stands at a silver altar which bears no fire, only smoke which may be blown in any direction by the air of Yetzirah. She is intended to represent a mixture of Minerva, goddess of wisdom, and Diana, goddess of the moon and of the hunt. The crest describing her personality is a head of Medusa. Medusa was at one time a very beautiful woman who, because she offended Athena, was transformed into a hideous creature with hair of serpents. The very sight of her would turn men to stone. Thus, the indication here is that the personality of the princess is not entirely pleasant. It should also be noted that it is Perseus who severs the head of Medusa. He is also represented on the Golden Dawn version of the Lovers, rescuing Andromeda from her earthly shackles. Mathers, a great symbolist, unquestionably intended that we make this connection. Princess of Pentacles, Princess of Echoing Hills, Rose of the Palace of Earth, Princess and Empress of the Gnomes, Throne of the Ace of Pentacles. The Princess of Pentacles is Earth of Earth, the personification of specific earth in the world of primal earth. Her Golden Dawn attribute is a winged ram's head, made a helmet by Crowley, suggesting that she is a completion of that found in the Princess of Wands. The princesses are less dependent of one another than are the other court cards, insofar as the elements are blended in Malkuth.